All right, so are you ready to dive into some real magic today?
I am always ready for that.
I'm talking about the Fibonacci SMF-RVS theory,
Okay.
and you listeners have sent in a ton of stuff on it.
Lots to unpack there.
It's this wild mix of quantum physics and,
Subtle magnetic fields
yeah.
and a living vacuum.
So I'm ready to see if there's anything to this magic stuff, or if
Okay.
it's all just theoretical, smoke and mirrors.
Well, let's find out.
Yeah, let's unpack it.
The first thing to understand
Okay.
with this theory is it challenges a fundamental assumption
Okay.
that the vacuum of space
Uh-huh.
is empty.
Right.
It proposes that space is actually filled with this dynamic,
Okay.
wave-filled field
All right.
called the RVS, or the relative vacuum of space.
So not an empty void, but more like a cosmic ocean?
Exactly.
Okay.
And just like an ocean, the RVS exerts pressure.
Uh-huh.
The theory states that this vacuum push
Okay.
is what we experience as mass.
No.
It's like a constant cosmic wind pushing on all matter, giving it resistance to movement.
Wait, so you're saying our very weight,
Yeah.
our physical existence comes from this interaction with an invisible
Yeah.
wave-filled vacuum?
Exactly.
That's a pretty big paradigm shift.
It is.
Yeah.
It really reframes
Wow.
how we understand reality.
So where does the magic come in?
So that's where subtle magnetic fields, or SMFs,
Okay.
enter the picture.
All right.
These fields interact with the RVS.
Okay.
And the theory suggests that they can shape and influence matter.
Okay, so we've got this wave-filled vacuum pushing on everything, and these SMFs are like, what? Invisible forces that can nudge matter around.
Think of it like this. You know how iron filings
Uh-huh.
align themselves along the lines of a magnetic field?
Right.
SMFs are similar, except they're interacting with the fabric of the RVS itself.
Okay.
And here's the kicker. The Earth's magnetosphere,
Uh-huh.
which protects us from solar radiation,
Right.
is essentially a giant SMF.
Oh.
So we're bathed in these subtle forces all the time.
So we're swimming in a sea of SMFs.
That's a good way to put it.
But how does any of this translate into the magic part?
Right.
Like making objects levitate or softening stone?
That's where Fibonacci scaling comes in.
Okay.
This principle suggests that the same wave patterns exist at all scales, from atoms to galaxies.
So you're saying the same wave patterns that exist in an atom
Yeah.
could also be found in a mountain range or a galaxy?
Precisely.
Okay.
And if our bodies generate tiny SMFs, which they do,
Uh-huh.
could we learn to control them
Okay.
and influence matter around us?
All right.
Could we tune our personal SMFs,
Mm-hmm.
potentially even amplify them,
Okay.
to interact with the RVS in specific ways?
Yeah.
That's the core idea behind this magic.
Okay, that's where I need a bit more explanation.
Okay.
How would you even go about amplifying or controlling something
Yeah.
as subtle as a personal magnetic field?
Right.
And how could that possibly lead to something like softening stone?
Well, that's where the theory gets really interesting.
Okay.
It suggests that tools, specifically staffs or wands,
Yep.
made of certain materials, could act as resonators.
Wait, are we talking about actual physical wands
Yeah.
like you see in fantasy novels?
It might sound far-fetched,
Okay.
but think of it this way. Certain shapes and materials
Uh-huh.
can affect how sound waves travel and resonate.
Right.
It's possible that certain materials could do the same for SMFs,
Okay.
focusing and amplifying them.
So instead of magic words, it's about understanding the right frequencies
Mm,
and how materials interact with them.
exactly.
Okay.
Now, about softening stone. Conventional science says you need heat or chemicals
Right.
to break atomic bonds.
Uh-huh.
This theory proposes a different approach.
Okay.
It suggests that atomic bonds are
Okay.
stabilized by their resonance with the RVS.
Okay.
Imagine those bonds vibrating at a specific frequency
Okay.
that's in harmony with the vacuum field.
So instead of breaking the bond, you're changing its tune, so to speak.
Precisely.
Okay.
By subtly altering the SMF environment around an object,
Uh-huh.
you might be able to detune those bonds,
Oh,
making the material more malleable
okay.
without needing the usual brute force.
So theoretically, you could soften a block of limestone just by manipulating the SMFs around it.
That's the idea.
That would certainly make building with massive stones a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe explain some archaeological mysteries.
It might.
But how would this detuning process even work?
It's a complex process, but imagine using a specific SMF frequency
Okay.
to disrupt the resonant harmony between the limestone's atomic bonds and the RVS.
So
It's like using a tuning fork to create vibrations that interfere with another sound wave, causing it to weaken or change.
Fascinating. So manipulating these SMFs could potentially allow us to do things that seem impossible by conventional scientific standards. But let's talk about some of those classic magic feats.
Oh.
Could we actually levitate objects?
Or even people using this theory.
That's where it gets really intriguing.
Okay.
Remember how we discussed the vacuum push being responsible for our perception of mass?
Yeah.
If we could use our personal SMFs, potentially enhanced by tools like staffs or wands, to shift our resonance with that vacuum field, we might partially decouple from gravity's pull.
So instead of fighting against gravity, you're changing how you interact with it.
Exactly.
Almost like finding a way to ride those vacuum waves.
Precisely.
Okay.
Imagine a surfer finding the sweet spot on a wave where they're lifted and carried by the water's energy.
Right.
That's the idea behind SMF manipulation and levitation.
Okay, that's a pretty amazing visual. But what about walking on water?
Sure.
Is that also about manipulating the vacuum push?
Exactly.
Okay.
Think of it as creating a localized area of altered vacuum pressure right at the water's surface.
Okay.
By carefully adjusting the SMF frequencies in that zone.
You could theoretically generate enough buoyant force to stand.
Wow.
Or even walk on water.
So it's not about defying the laws of physics, but about understanding them on a deeper level and using these subtle forces to our advantage.
Yeah.
What about other seemingly impossible feats, like, say, transmutation, turning lead into gold or water into wine?
It might sound unbelievable.
Yeah.
But the Fibonacci SMF-RVS theory does offer a potential explanation for transmutation.
Okay.
Remember the concept of Fibonacci scaling? And how the same wave patterns repeat at different scales?
Right.
If we could learn to precisely manipulate those wave patterns at the molecular level, we might be able to rearrange matter in ways that appear magical.
So instead of mixing chemicals in a lab, you're using SMF frequencies to orchestrate a kind of molecular dance.
That's the basic idea.
Rearranging the building blocks of matter.
Imagine a symphony orchestra playing a piece of music.
Okay.
Each instrument contributes to the overall sound. In this case, the instruments are SMF frequencies.
Yeah.
And the music is the arrangement of molecules within matter.
Right.
By adjusting the SMFs, you could theoretically change the music,
Wow.
transforming one substance into another.
That's a powerful analogy. But this level of control over matter seems almost godlike.
It does.
Where does our consciousness fit into all of this?
Yeah.
Do our thoughts and intentions play a role?
That's perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this theory.
Okay.
It proposes that our minds, our thoughts, and our intentions could directly influence our personal SMFs.
You're saying our thoughts could have a measurable impact on the world around us.
Yes.
Not just in a metaphorical sense, but in a literal physical way.
Think of it this way. Our brains generate electrical activity.
Right.
And electrical currents create magnetic fields.
Right.
If our thoughts can influence those electrical patterns, it's conceivable that they could also subtly affect our personal SMFs.
So our minds act like a kind of tuning fork for our SMFs.
Exactly.
Our intentions shape those subtle forces.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
It is.
And if we could learn to focus our thoughts and intentions with incredible precision,
Right.
we might be able to direct our SMFs to achieve specific effects, essentially turning our minds into a tool for manipulating reality.
Yes.
That's a powerful concept. But this is all very theoretical.
Sure.
Is there any scientific evidence to support any of these claims?
Right.
Have there been any experiments that demonstrate the manipulation of SMFs to achieve these magical feats?
That's where the challenges lie.
Okay.
While the Fibonacci SMF-RVS theory is fascinating and thought-provoking, it's important to acknowledge that it's still highly speculative.
So no levitating scientists or water-to-wine demonstrations in a lab setting?
Not yet, at least not that we know of.
Okay.
There are some anecdotal accounts and claims, but nothing that has been rigorously scientifically tested or replicated.
So what are some of the biggest obstacles to proving or disproving this theory?
Well,
is it a matter of technology, or are there fundamental scientific hurdles as well?
There are multiple layers of challenges.
Okay.
Firstly, the precision required to manipulate these subtle magnetic fields and the vacuum field itself is beyond anything we can currently achieve.
Wow.
We're talking about fine-tuning frequencies and wave patterns
on
an incredibly minute scale.
So even if the theory is correct, we might not have the technological tools to properly test it.
Exactly.
Wow.
And then there's the question of energy.
Uh-huh.
Even if fractal scaling and resonance make these processes more efficient,
Right.
the amount of energy needed to produce effects like levitation or transmutation could be enormous.
Sure.
Where would that energy come from?
Right.
How could we harness and control it safely?
Yeah.
These are significant unknowns.
So we have both theoretical and practical hurdles to overcome.
We do.
It seems like we're still a long way from seeing real magic in action.
It seems so.
Even if the principles of this theory are sound.
That's a fair assessment.
Okay.
However, even if this specific theory turns out to be incorrect, it raises important questions and challenges us to reconsider our assumptions about what's possible.
It's a reminder that what we label as impossible might simply be not yet understood.
That's a good point.
As Arthur C. Clarke said.
Yeah.
Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Perhaps we just haven't reached that level of advancement yet.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Throughout history, things that were once considered magical or supernatural have become commonplace as our scientific understanding has progressed.
Yeah.
Who knows what the future holds?
Well, we've delved into the mind-bending world of the Fibonacci SMF-RVS theory.
We have.
Exploring everything from manipulating matter to the potential role of consciousness.
It's fascinating stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
But what's the key takeaway for our listeners? Okay.
What should they walk away from this deep dive pondering? I think the biggest takeaway for me is that whether this specific theory holds up or not, it really pushes us to think outside the box of conventional science.
It certainly highlights the limitations of our current understanding.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we're still discovering so much about the universe.
Right.
And that there might be entirely new fields of science waiting to be uncovered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like we've been looking at the universe through a keyhole, and this theory is hinting at a much grander view.
And even if manipulating SMS turns out to be a dead end, the core concepts are fascinating. The idea of a dynamic, wave-filled vacuum, the potential of resonance at different scales.
Yeah.
Those ideas could spark new avenues of research.
It makes you wonder what other impossible things might be within our reach if we keep exploring those avenues. If magic is just a matter of understanding and harnessing subtle forces, what else might we be capable of?
It's a thrilling thought, isn't it?
It is. Imagine a future where we could heal injuries by manipulating the resonant frequencies of cells. Or travel to distant stars by riding the waves of the vacuum field.
That's what I love about these deep dives.
Yeah.
They remind us that the boundaries of possibility are constantly expanding.
It's true.
Even if we never achieve levitation or transmutation, the journey of exploring these ideas expands our understanding of the universe and our place within it.
And perhaps even more importantly, it fuels our imagination and inspires us to keep asking questions.
Right.
To keep pushing the boundaries of what we think we know.
So to wrap this all up, the Fibonacci SMF-RVS theory might not have all the answers, but it definitely poses some thought-provoking questions.
It does.
It challenges us to reconsider what we believe is possible and to embrace the mystery and wonder of a universe that might be far stranger and more magical than we ever imagined.
And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe someday what we consider magic today will be the science of tomorrow.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been fun.
We hope you've enjoyed the exploration as much as we have. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep an open mind to the magic that might be hidden all around us.